He was the richest man in the room, powerful, proud and speaking only Chinese. Everyone stayed quiet, embarrassed, powerless, until one woman stepped forward. The black maid no one noticed. Asterisk, what she said. Changed everything every day. After school, a little boy named Zayan sat outside a cafe with a torn backpack and a plastic lunchbox in his lap. He didn't beg, didn't speak, just quietly watched people pass by, hopeful, patient, like he was waiting for someone. Most walked past him without a glance, assuming he was just another poor kid from a nearby neighborhood. But the cafe owner, an older woman named Mrs. Hale, had noticed. One day, after watching him sit for hours without moving, she walked out and handed him a warm sandwich. Zayan looked up, surprised, and whispered, "Thank you, but I'm waiting for my father. He said he'd come back for me when he gets a job." Her heart sank. Over the next few days, she watched him return. Same time, same spot, always sitting, always waiting. Rain or shine, the boy believed his father would come back. Mrs. Hale began sitting with him, bringing him food, helping with homework. She asked around, but no one knew where the father had gone. Days turned into weeks. Then one cold evening, Zayan didn't show up. Worried, Mrs. Hale searched for him and found out he had collapsed from exhaustion just a street away. At the hospital, she stayed by his side, holding his hand like a mother. That night, she made a quiet promise. Whether his father returned or not, Zayan would never wait alone again. From that day on, she became his guardian, not because she had to, but because the world needs people who see the invisible. And Zayan, he stopped waiting, not because he gave up on his father, because someone finally showed up for him. Zayan woke up in the hospital with sunlight creeping through the window and a gentle warmth holding his hand. It was Mrs. Hale, asleep in a chair beside him. For a moment, he thought it was a dream. No one had ever waited for him like that. When she opened her eyes, she smiled and said, "I told them I'm your guardian now." Zayan didn't fully understand what that meant, but he nodded slowly, feeling safe for the first time in a long time. Over the next few weeks, Mrs. Hale brought him home, a small room above her cafe, cozy but full of care. She enrolled him in a nearby school, packed his lunches, and made sure he wore clean clothes. At night, she'd read him stories and sometimes sit quietly beside him when he cried for a father who never came back. She never forced him to forget, never told him to move on. Instead, she promised, "I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here so you don't have to do life alone." Zayan began helping at the cafe after school, wiping tables, taking orders, smiling shyly at customers. Locals started calling him her little shadow. He still kept a picture of his father in a drawer, still wondered what went wrong. But he no longer waited outside. He no longer counted the days. He started counting small wins. A spelling test he passed, a cup of tea he served with perfect balance, the sound of someone saying, "I'm proud of you." Mrs. Hale wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. But to Zayan, she was everything, proof that sometimes the love you need doesn't come from where you expect, but from the one who simply refuses to leave. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning the storage room above the cafe, Zayan stumbled upon an old metal box tucked behind some dusty crates. Curious, he opened it and found a pile of old letters tied with string. First he thought they were just receipts or business papers, but as he flipped through them, his hands froze. One envelope had his name on it in shaky handwriting he hadn't seen in years. It was from his father, dated nearly a year ago. The letter had never been mailed. It read, "Zayan, I'm sorry. I left because I thought I wasn't good enough to raise you. I tried to find work. I'd failed. But I never stopped thinking about you. I hope someone kind finds you. I pray they love you better than I could." Zayan's heart sank. So his father hadn't forgotten him. He hadn't just disappeared. Tears welled up as he held the letter. Close, unsure whether to be angry or relieved. That evening, Mrs. Hale found him sitting alone, letter in hand. She read it quietly, then gently said, "Sometimes love shows up late, but it doesn't mean it wasn't real." They didn't talk much after that, just sat together, letting silence say what words couldn't. For days, Zayan carried the letter in his pocket like a piece of his past he wasn't ready to let go of. He didn't know if he would ever see his father again. But now he knew the truth, and the truth was softer than the silence. He had lived with Mrs. Hale, didn't ask him to choose between the past and the present. She simply reminded him, "You're allowed to love both." And in that moment, Zayan began to heal from more than just waiting asterisk. It was a quiet Sunday morning when the cafe bell rang, the sound softer than usual. Zayan was wiping down a table. While Mrs. Hale prepared breakfast in the back, a tall man stood at the entrance, soaked from the rain, holding a wrinkled piece of paper. His clothes were worn, his eyes tired, but there was something familiar about him. Zayan looked up and froze. The man spoke gently. "Is there a boy named Zayan here?" His voice cracked, not from age, but from regret. Mrs. Hale stepped out, glanced at the man, and instantly understood. Without a word, she nodded toward the boy behind the counter. Zayan's hands trembled. It had been almost 2 years, 2 years of silence. 2 years of waiting, wondering, hurting, and yet here he was, his father. No explanations, no big speech, just presence. The man pulled out another letter, this one new. "I didn't come to take you away," he said. "I just needed to say I'm sorry, face to face. I don't expect anything, I just needed you to know I never stopped loving you." Zayan didn't reply right away. His heart was a storm. But then he remembered Mrs. Hale's words, "You're allowed to love." Both so slowly he stepped forward. No dramatic hugs, no background music, just a quiet boy standing in front of a broken man trying to make things right. He took the letter, nodded, and said, "I'm not angry. I just didn't know if you'd ever come. That was enough." "Right." The man smiled, tired but lighter. He left. Mrs. Hale placed her hand on Zayan's shoulder. "You okay?" He looked at her and whispered, "I think. I'm starting to be asterisk." Months had passed since Zayan met his father again. And though they didn't see each other often, the silence between them was no longer heavy, it had softened. They exchanged letters now, slow but honest, and Zayan no longer needed answers to every question. One evening, while helping close the cafe, he asked Mrs. Hale, "Do you think waiting changes us?" She looked up from wiping the counter, smiled, and said, "Only if we grow while we wait." That night, Zayan sat at the small desk in his room, looking at the photo of his younger self sitting alone outside the cafe. The boy who used to wait placed the old photo beside a new one, him and Mrs. Hale at his school's award ceremony, both smiling, both proud. For the first time he realized he wasn't waiting anymore. He was living. He had friends, dreams, and a future he believed in. He wasn't a lost boy hoping someone would come save him. He had become the kind of person who could save himself and, maybe one day, someone else too. At school, when a younger boy was being bullied, Zayan stepped in, not with anger, but with understanding. He sat beside the boy at lunch, offered him part of his sandwich, and simply said, "You're not invisible." That moment felt familiar, like he was passing on something that had once saved him. That night, he hugged Mrs. Hale tighter than usual. "Thank you," he whispered. She didn't ask why. She just held him and said, "You don't owe me anything, but I'm glad I stayed." And as the lights went off, Zayan knew. His story didn't end when the waiting stopped. Began when someone chose to stay. Now, he was finally home.